Lieutenant Commander J1 Park lay perfectly still in the wet mud. Rain fell steadily around him, but he didn't move. Through his night vision goggles, he watched the target building 300 meters away. His four-man SEAL team was spread out nearby, equally silent and hidden. Eagle 2, movement at the back door, whispered Hey Newell through the radio. The team's sniper had the best view of the building's rear entrance. Copy that, J1 replied quietly. Hold position. This mission was supposed to be simple. Gather evidence of weapons smuggling at this remote coastal facility, then leave without being seen. But something felt wrong. The guard patterns were too irregular, and there weren't enough lights on for a building that was supposed to be active at night. Suddenly, all their radios crackled with static. J1's watch stopped working. Even the digital display on his rifle scope went dark. All electronics are dead, reported Tai Young, their communications expert. Something's interfering with everything. Then the sky lit up. Massive ships appeared above them, breaking through the clouds. They were bigger than aircraft carriers and shaped like arrowheads. Strange blue lights pulsed along their sides. More and more ships appeared until they filled the sky. Hold position, J1 ordered. His team stayed hidden, watching as smaller craft descended from the large ships. These smaller vessels were smooth and silver, about the size of helicopters but completely silent. 3 of these craft landed in the open area near the target building. J1 adjusted his position slightly to get a better view. Doors opened in the sides of the vessels, and figures stepped out. They were humanoid but clearly not human. They stood nearly 7 feet tall and wore armor that seemed to shift colors like oil on water. Their helmets had no visible faceplates, just smooth curved surfaces that reflected the ship's lights. Eagle Lead, these aren't our smugglers, Sunhai said through the radio, which was now working again. Negative, J1 agreed. All units maintain cover. Observe only. More aliens emerged from the ships. They carried weapons that looked advanced, but were recognizable as guns. They moved with military precision, securing the area in a standard patrol pattern. Then a voice boomed from above, speaking in perfect English. ATTNTION citizens of Earth. This is Commander Sio Kim of the Galactic Confederation. We come in PCs as representatives of the dominant military force in the known universe. J1's team watched as a new figure descended from one of the ships, floating down on what looked like a platform of light. This alien was different from the others. Its armor was more decorated, with glowing symbols that probably indicated rank. The alien commander removed its helmet, revealing a face that could have passed for human except for its silvery skin and completely black eyes. It spoke again, this time in a normal volume. We have been observing your planet for some time. Your military capabilities are quaint. We are here to help you advance. J1 noticed something interesting. Despite their advanced technology, these aliens still used basic military formations. They still needed to watch their corners and maintain security. They were soldiers, just like his team. More alien ships were landing now. News helicopters appeared in the distance, and J1 could hear police sirens approaching. This was about to become very public. Eagle Lead to command. J1 radioed to his headquarters. Be advised, we have a major situation here. First contact with extraterrestrial forces. I say again, we have alien contact at our location. Copy Eagle Lead, came the response. Hold position and observe. Do not engage. More instructions coming. Commander Sio Kim was still speaking, now addressing the gathering crowd of local law enforcement and media. Your most elite warriors would be considered basic infantry in our forces, your special operations teams. The alien actually laughed. They would not survive basic training in the Confederation military. J1 smiled slightly. The alien commander had no idea that 4 of Earth's most elite warriors were watching him right now, completely undetected despite all their advanced technology. "Eagle Team, maintain stealth," J1 ordered. "Let's see what else they don't know about us." His team acknowledged silently. They remained hidden in plain sight, gathering intelligence on Earth's new visitors. The rain continued to fall, and somewhere above, more alien ships were appearing through the clouds. Humanity's place in the galaxy had just changed forever. But J1 had a feeling these aliens had a lot to learn about Earth's warriors, especially its special operations forces. Sometimes the most dangerous predator was the one you didn't consider a threat at all. 2 weeks after first contact, J1 sat in a briefing room at the Pentagon. The walls displayed holographic images of Confederation ships and weapons, courtesy of their new alien visitors. Military leaders from around the world filled the room, all watching Commander Do-hyun Lee, the Confederation's military advisor. "Your weapons are inefficient," Do-hyun said, pointing at an Earth assault rifle. "Your armor is practically non-existent. And your tactics." He shook his head, his silver skin reflecting the room's lights. "They belong in a museum." J1 noticed how Do-hyun moved with a stiffness that reminded him of parade ground soldiers who had never seen real combat. The alien commander seemed to think war was all about technology and rules. "We propose a military exchange program," Do-hyun continued. "We will teach your forces proper combat techniques. First, we need to assess your current capabilities." A general raised his hand. "What kind of assessment?" Do-hyun smiled, showing teeth that looked almost too perfect. "A competition. Your best warriors against our standard troops. We have training grounds on one of your moon's bases where we can demonstrate the difference between Earth forces and proper military doctrine." The room erupted in whispers. J1 stayed quiet, remembering how none of the aliens had detected his team during first contact, despite their advanced sensors. "Each nation may send 1 unit," Do-hyun explained. "We will test them against various challenges. This will show you how much your forces need our help." The Chinese general stood up first. "We will send our mountain warfare unit." Other nations followed, each naming their chosen forces. Most picked large, well-equipped units. When it was America's turn, the Joint Chiefs huddled together. Finally, Admiral Hayes spoke. "We will send 1 SEAL team. 4 operators." Do-hyun actually laughed. 4 soldiers. Against our forces. He turned to his assistant, Captain Mayra-song, who looked equally amused. "They cannot be serious." "We are very serious," Admiral Hayes said firmly. "Lieutenant Commander Park's team will represent us." J1 sat straighter in his chair. His team had been training nonstop since first contact, studying everything they could learn about the aliens. He had already noticed things that others missed. How the aliens relied too heavily on their technology. How they never seemed to expect the unexpected. "Very well," Do-hyun said. "The exercise begins in 1 week. Each team will face our forces in combat scenarios using non-lethal weapons. We will show you what real military power looks like." After the meeting, J1 met with his team in their secure room. Hae-Newell was cleaning his sniper rifle, Sun-Hae was studying alien shield technology diagrams, and Tae-young was analyzing Confederation communication patterns. "They think we're a joke," Sun-Hae said, looking up from his work. "Did you see how they laughed?" J1 nodded. "That's their first mistake. They think war is about who has the better toys. They've forgotten that victory often goes to those who can think differently." "Their armor has blind spots," Hae-Newell added quietly. "They'd never look up. Too used to relying on sensors. And their communications are too structured," Tae-young said. "They don't expect anyone to fight without perfect radio contact." J1 smiled. His team was already finding weaknesses that the aliens didn't even know they had. "We have 1 week to prepare. The Confederation thinks they're going to teach us a lesson. Instead, we're going to show them why Earth's special forces are truly special." Outside their window, A Confederation ship floated over the Pentagon, its lights pulsing steadily. Soon, its crew would learn that humanity's warriors had survived and evolved through countless wars, not because of superior technology, but because of something the aliens hadn't considered: the ability to adapt, improvise, and overcome. The moon base looked like a collection of silver bubbles connected by long tubes. J1's team stood at the airlock, checking their equipment one final time. They wore basic combat suits provided by the Confederation, but they had brought their own weapons, modified for non-lethal training rounds. Earth weapons in our facility. Captain Myra Song stood nearby, watching them with obvious disapproval. The other teams accepted our superior equipment. J1 checked his rifle again. We prefer what we know, Captain. Myra shook her head. Her silver skin seemed to shimmer under the artificial lights. The Chinese team has already mastered our pulse rifles. The Russians are excellent with our shield generators, yet you insist on using projectile weapons. Yes, Mom, J1 replied simply. He saw no need to explain that his team had spent the last week studying how the alien shields worked and had found 3 different ways to bypass them. Through the base's clear walls, they could see the other teams practicing. The Chinese had brought 40 soldiers, all now wearing the sleek Confederation armor. The Russians had 30, the British 25. Each team looked impressive with their energy weapons and powered suits. Your team is so small, Myra said. How do you expect to compete? Newell answered by assembling his sniper rifle in under 10 seconds, each movement precise and practiced. Sun Hai was checking his special ammunition. Rubber rounds that looked normal but contained surprising additions he had designed. Taeyong had modified their radio equipment in ways that made Myra frown. Size isn't everything, J1 said. Sometimes being small means being overlooked. Major Jin Woo-Yoon, who would lead the Confederation forces in the exercise, walked past their preparation area. He stopped and stared at their gear. This is what you're using. How primitive. His troops behind him laughed. J1 noticed how Jin Woo's soldiers bunched together, how they always stayed in perfect formation. They moved like they were on parade, not in combat. Their weakness wasn't their technology, it was their thinking. The exercise begins tomorrow, Jin Woo announced. My forces will demonstrate proper military tactics. Watch and learn, Earth soldiers. After the aliens left, Sun Hai turned to J1. They really don't think we can fight. They think war is about following rules, J1 replied. They've forgotten that sometimes the best move is the one your enemy doesn't expect. The team spent the rest of the day preparing. While other units practiced with their new alien weapons, J1's team studied the moon base's layout. They found maintenance tunnels that the aliens never used. They spotted blind spots in the security systems. They mapped routes that didn't appear on official plans. That night, as artificial darkness fell over the moon base, J1 gathered his team. Remember our training. We're not here to fight their way. We're here to fight our way. Like that time in Somalia. Newell asked quietly. Exactly, J1 nodded. They expect us to play by their rules, to fight on their terms. But that's not what SEALs do. Through the window, Earth glowed blue and white. Somewhere up there, millions of people were watching this competition. They needed to show the galaxy that humanity's warriors weren't primitive. They were practical. Get some rest, J1 ordered. Tomorrow, we teach the Confederation why Earth's special forces are special. As his team prepared for sleep, J1 watched the alien soldiers drilling in perfect formation. They were skilled, disciplined, and completely predictable. Tomorrow, they would learn that sometimes the most dangerous enemy isn't the one with the best weapons. It's the one who knows how to think differently. The moon base's main training arena was enormous. Its dome stretched high overhead, filled with artificial terrain. Rocky hills, abandoned structures, and deep shadows filled the space. The air smelled clean and artificial. Commander Du Hyun Lee stood on a floating platform above the arena. His voice echoed through speakers. The exercise is simple. Each team must capture and hold the central command post. Confederation forces will defend. You have 6 hours. J1 and his team stood ready at their starting position. Around the arena's edge, other Earth teams prepared. The Chinese unit checked their alien weapons. The Russians adjusted their shield generators. The British troops tested their powered armor. "This should be entertaining," Major Jinwoo said from his command post. His platoon of 30 soldiers spread out in textbook defensive positions. Their advanced sensors swept the area constantly. The starting signal flashed. Immediately, the Chinese forces charged forward, their new energy weapons blazing. The Russians advanced in perfect formation behind shield walls. The British team split into squads and attacked from multiple directions. J1's team did something different. They disappeared. "Where are the Americans?" Mireille asked from the observation deck. Her sensors showed nothing where the SEAL team had been standing. Below, the battle raged. Confederation forces easily repelled the first wave of attacks. Their superior technology proved devastating. Chinese soldiers fell to stun blasts. Russian shields failed under concentrated fire. British-powered armor shut down when hit by electromagnetic pulses. "You see," Jinwoo announced proudly, "this is how proper military forces fight. Where are your primitive Earth tactics now?" A soft sound made him turn. One of his rear guards was down, marked with a training round that had somehow slipped through their shields. Then another guard fell silently. And another. "Check your sensors," Jinwoo ordered, but the sensors showed nothing. Hanul had found a position high in the artificial terrain. His sniper rifle made no sound as it sent special rounds through gaps in the alien shields. Sun He's modified ammunition was disrupting shield frequencies without triggering alarms. Tudyung had hacked into the base's maintenance systems. He used them to create false readings on alien sensors. The Confederation soldiers were looking in all the wrong places. Confusion spread through Jinwoo's forces. Their perfect formation began to break. They were trained to fight enemies they could see, enemies who followed proper military doctrine. They didn't know how to handle an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. "This is impossible," Jinwoo said, as more of his soldiers fell to invisible attacks. "Where are they?" His answer came when J1 appeared suddenly behind him, as if emerging from the shadows themselves. The SEAL commander held his rifle casually. "Looking for us." Jinwoo spun and fired, but J1 was already gone. More Confederation soldiers dropped, marked by training rounds that came from impossible angles. Their rigid formations, drilled to perfection, now worked against them as they couldn't adapt fast enough. From the observation deck, Mireille watched in amazement. The other Earth teams had stopped fighting, also watching as 4 humans systematically dismantled the galaxy's most advanced military force. "How?" Du-hyun demanded. "Their weapons are primitive. Their armor is basic. They have no advanced technology." Mireille was beginning to understand. They don't need it. They're fighting with their minds, not just their weapons. The exercise ended in less than 2 hours. Jinwoo's entire platoon had been eliminated. The central command post was captured, and at its center stood 4 Navy SEALs, looking as calm as if they had just finished a training run. Sometimes, J1 said to the stunned alien commanders, "The most effective weapon isn't the most advanced. It's the one your enemy doesn't see coming." The second day of training exercises began differently. Major Jinwoo had doubled his forces. 60 Confederation soldiers now stood ready, their advanced weapons humming with power. They had spent the night studying footage of the previous day's defeat. "No more games," Jinwoo announced to his troops. "Today we show them real galactic warfare." J1 watched from his team's starting position. The SEAL team had made no changes to their equipment. They still carried their modified Earth weapons and basic combat suits. "You could still use our weapons," Captain Mireille offered, approaching their position. "Give yourselves a fair chance." "Fair isn't always about having equal equipment," J1 replied. Sometimes it's about using what you know best. The day's challenge was different. Teams had to escort a supply convoy through enemy territory. The Confederation forces would attack from hidden positions. It was designed to showcase their superior ambush tactics. Commander Du Hyun smiled from his observation post. Now they will see how real soldiers fight. The Chinese team went first. Despite their new alien weapons, they lost their convoy in minutes. The Russians fared no better, their shield generators failing under attacks from multiple directions. The British team managed to save half their convoy, but still failed the mission. Then it was the SEALs' turn. "Begin," Du Hyun announced, expecting another quick victory for his forces. J1's team started moving with their convoy, but something was different. They stayed in shadows that the alien sensors couldn't quite penetrate. They used the terrain in ways the previous teams hadn't considered. "Where are they?" Jin Woo demanded, watching his sensor displays. The convoy was moving, but his soldiers couldn't get a clear fix on the SEALs. Han Newell had positioned himself ahead of the convoy, using old-fashioned visual scanning instead of relying on technology. He spotted the first ambush team before they activated their weapons. A series of perfectly placed shots with his modified rifle marked 3 alien soldiers before they knew they were exposed. Sun Hai had rigged the convoy vehicles with simple but effective countermeasures. When Confederation forces tried to use their electromagnetic weapons, they found their signals reflected back at them. The aliens' own technology became a weakness. Tai Young monitored the Confederation's communications. Their rigid, predictable patterns made it easy for him to anticipate their movements. He fed this information to J1, who used it to turn each ambush against the attackers. "Impossible," Jin Woo said as his forces repeatedly failed to stop the convoy. "They're using primitive tactics." "No," Mirai corrected, watching with growing understanding. "They're using proven tactics. We just forgot these basics still work." The convoy reached its destination intact. Not a single vehicle was lost. Around the route lay dozens of marked Confederation soldiers, defeated by an enemy they had considered primitive. J1 gathered his team at the finish point. They looked relaxed, as if they had just completed a routine patrol. Around them, alien observers whispered and pointed. "How?" Jin Woo demanded, approaching them. "You have no energy weapons, no powered armor, no shield generators." "We have something better," J1 explained. "We have the ability to adapt, to think differently, to use what others consider weaknesses as strengths." Do Hyun watched from above, his earlier confidence replaced by thoughtful consideration. These humans had achieved something remarkable. They had proven that superior technology alone didn't make superior warriors. "Perhaps," Mayray said quietly, "we have more to learn from Earth than we thought." The third day of exercises never went as planned. As the teams prepared for their next challenge, emergency alarms blared throughout the moonbase. Red lights flashed in every corridor. "Unknown vessels approaching," announced the base's computer system. "They are not responding to communications." Through the base's transparent walls, everyone could see 3 large black ships appearing from behind the moon. Their design was different from the Confederation vessels, more angular, more threatening. "Pirates," Commander Du Hyun said, his face showing real concern for the first time. "The Drachnid raiders. They must have followed us here." Major Jin Woo quickly organized his forces. "All units, battle positions. This is no longer an exercise." The Confederation soldiers moved to their defensive positions, but J1 noticed they looked uncertain. These troops were trained for formal military engagements, not dealing with raiders who didn't follow rules of warfare. "Your Earth teams should take shelter," Mayray advised. "These pirates are extremely dangerous. They use illegal weapons and tactics that—" An explosion cut off her words. The raiders had breached the base's outer defenses much faster than expected. They poured in through multiple entry points, wearing black armor and carrying weapons that looked crude but deadly. The Chinese and Russian teams tried to help defend using their new Confederation weapons, but they weren't fully familiar with the technology. The British team's powered armor malfunctioned under the pirates' electronic attacks. "Fall back. Protect the command center," Jin Woo ordered as his forces struggled against the unconventional assault. J1 gathered his team. Time to show them what SEALs do best: adapt and overcome. They moved through the chaos with practiced ease. While Confederation forces fought head-on battles in the main corridors, the SEALs used maintenance tunnels and service ducts they had mapped earlier. Newell found a perfect position overlooking 3 different corridors. His rifle, now loaded with real ammunition, began taking down pirates who never saw where the shots came from. Sun Hai used his knowledge of the base's systems to create traps. He redirected power flows and turned environmental controls into weapons. Pirates found themselves stuck in sections with no gravity or air pressure. Taeyong intercepted and decoded the pirates' communications. "They're after the base's power core," he reported to J1. "They want to steal it." The SEAL team moved quickly to the power core. They arrived just as a group of pirates was breaking through the last security door. Instead of charging in with energy weapons like the Confederation forces would have done, they used shadows and silence. "Watch and learn," J1 said to Mayray, who had followed them. In less than 2 minutes, all 6 pirates were unconscious or captured. Not a single shot had been fired. Throughout the base, the tide began to turn. Following the SEALs' example, Confederation forces started fighting smarter instead of just relying on their technology. They used cover, coordinated their attacks, and fought before shooting. "I understand now," Jinwoo said as he watched J1's team secure another section of the base. "Your primitive weapons and tactics, they aren't primitive at all. They're proven, tested, real." By the time reinforcement ships arrived, the raid was over. The pirates had been captured or driven off. The moon base was damaged but secure. And standing in the command center, calmly discussing tactics with amazed alien officers, were 4 Navy SEALs who had just shown the galaxy that humanity's warriors were anything but primitive. The day after the pirate attack, the moon base buzzed with activity. Repair crews fixed damaged sections while security teams installed new defenses. But in the main conference room, something more important was happening. Major Jinwoo stood before a gathering of Confederation officers and Earth military representatives. His silver skin showed signs of fatigue, but his voice was clear and strong. "I wish to formally acknowledge that I was wrong," he announced. "The Earth forces, particularly the Navy SEALs, displayed combat excellence that rivals our best units. Their tactics were not primitive, they were proven effective." J1 and his team sat quietly in the back of the room. They wore their basic combat suits, now bearing marks from real combat. Among the shining alien armor and advanced technology, they looked simple, but no one was laughing anymore. During the pirate attack, Jinwoo continued, "Lieutenant Commander Park's team demonstrated abilities we had overlooked. They showed us that true military strength comes from the warriors, not just their weapons." Captain Mayray stepped forward with data displays floating around her. "We have analyzed their performance. The SEALs accomplished their objectives using minimal resources. They adapted to situations faster than our forces. They found solutions we never considered." The displays showed footage from the battle. Newell taking down pirates from impossible angles without relying on targeting computers. Sun Hai turning simple environment controls into effective weapons. Taeyong breaking enemy communications using basic equipment. Jaiwan leading his team through chaos with calm precision. "Most importantly," Mayray said, "they reminded us of lessons we had forgotten. The importance of thinking differently, the value of stealth and surprise, the power of small, well-trained teams." Commander Do-hyun, who had once dismissed Earth's forces as primitive, now looked thoughtful. "Perhaps it is we who need to learn from them. Our forces have become too dependent on technology, too rigid in our thinking." The room fell silent as Newell raised his hand to speak. The quiet sniper rarely talked in meetings. "Technology is a tool," he said simply. "A warrior's mind is the real weapon." His words seemed to resonate with everyone present. The Confederation officers nodded in agreement. Even the other Earth teams, who had initially doubted the decision to send just 4 SEALs, showed their respect. Therefore, Jin Wu announced, "I am recommending that Earth's Special Operations Forces, beginning with the Navy SEALs, be invited to train Confederation units. We need to relearn the fundamental skills they have mastered." Myray started organizing new training schedules immediately. "We will combine Earth tactics with our technology. Imagine our forces with both advantages, the SEALs' adaptability and our advanced equipment." After the meeting, Jin Wu approached J1's team privately. "You have taught us something valuable," he said. "In our pursuit of advanced technology, we had forgotten that the most powerful weapon in any military is the mind of a well-trained warrior." J1 nodded. "Every tool, whether it's a simple rifle or an energy weapon, is only as good as the person using it." Through the conference room windows, Earth hung in the black sky like a blue jewel. Humans and aliens stood together, no longer separated by assumptions about primitive or advanced warfare. They had found a common understanding that true military excellence comes from the perfect balance of mind, body, and tools. John walked into the dark cave. He turned on his flashlight. The beam of light showed the way forward. The cave was cold and damp. Water dripped from the ceiling. John's footsteps echoed off the rock walls. As he went deeper, the cave got narrower. Soon John had to crouch down. He hoped the cave would open up again soon. He didn't like feeling trapped in tight spaces. Suddenly, John heard a strange noise up ahead. It sounded like something moving. John froze. He listened closely. There it was again, a scuffling, scraping sound. John's heart pounded. What could be making that noise? An animal. The cave was supposed to be empty. John took a deep breath. He knew he had to keep going. Very slowly, he crept forward. The beam of John's flashlight darted around, searching. Then he saw it. There was something on the cave floor up ahead. John moved closer, shining his light on it. He gasped. Lying on the ground in front of John was a pile of bones. They looked old and weathered. John knelt down to get a better look. He could see a skull, rib bones, and more. Next to the skeleton, something glinted in the light. John reached out a trembling hand. His fingers closed around something hard and cold. A dagger. An ancient-looking dagger lay beside the bones. Questions raced through John's mind. Who had this been? How long ago did they die? What was their story? John knew one thing for certain. This cave held secrets, and he was determined to uncover them, no matter where they led him. The mystery had only just begun.